the implements of my own oppression from the master. Right? So I need to be in touch with that rage, with that anger, with that social upheaval. That is the driving force of the underprivileged. And I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about basically everybody on the world that isn't part of the ruling class, which is a whole lot of people. Right? So you can sense Occupy. Occupy is trying to tap into that, but it's just too commercial. Right? Everybody's buying V for Vendetta masks. I'm playing into the game, you know, but I'm an academic, right? I'm not anything else. The idea is we recognize, as Nietzsche says, that it is, and this is what I think is profound, the doctrine of suppression, denial, 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 denial as given, suppression as given, compounded by ideological denial, ideological suppression, compounded with denialists who excel in their respective fields, denying again. Right? It's just, and then we have the skull shirt, and then it is a representation of just how much of a denialist culture we've become. Nietzsche didn't have the faintest clue. He didn't have the faintest clue about how bad it was going to get. And there is absolutely no counter-narrative. This is the counter-narrative right here. This is the beginning of the counter-narrative. Right? And there's a ton of money to make. So for those of you who are in this for money, I'm telling you right now, hopefully nobody watches this video. I want no more than, like, at this particular point, hopefully I never exceed 100 views. It would be perfect. I'd be happy, because I don't want this to be for the masses. And I know the vast majority of people don't watch these videos, which nothing pleases me more than that, because this isn't for everybody. So if you're one of the people that is watching these videos and you're taking my ideas to do something with it, and you're interested in making money, there's a crap ton of money. I'm not interested in money at all. There's a crap ton of money to be made in marketing this counter-narrative. The counter-narrative is pride, ego, me. Counter-narrative to the skull shirts and all the skull memorabilia and the skull and crossbows, and everybody's like crossbones and it's all Illuminati, blah, blah, blah. It's not Illuminati. It's theological. It's theological. Its root, according to Nietzsche, is in Christian ideological dogma of self-suppression, self-denial. That's its root, according to Nietzsche. Whether you believe that or not is irrespective to the fact. This is what Nietzsche's saying, right? So you think it's Illuminati. It's not, right? It's none of that. It is the denial of our existence and our desires and our drives because of a pre-existing theological system in place. Secularists, hello, if you're a secularist and you got a little bit of paper in your pocket and you want to make some money, you create a marketing campaign that affirms the counter-narrative to the Death Skull shirt. And it's about pride, it's about me, it's about being the best, it's about being prideful and not being shameful for being smarter and better and working harder and more diligent than the other guy. Because as we saw, egoism, according to Nietzsche, is always at the expense of someone else's ego. It's always my ego over your ego. So it is about being the best. It is about being the best. Right? We the best. Shout out to Khaled again. Right? Create that marketing campaign. Create movies that celebrate that. Revisit Walt Whitman. Revisit, revisit Rand. Let's have an insane surge of pride in society. That's the secularist approach, right? So to think that it's a bunch of devil worshippers and atheists that are motivating this discourse is to fail to see the theological infusion into society. The secularist approach wouldn't be that death worship, if you will. That's taking it a bit far, but it wouldn't be that. I mean, it's not taking it. It's far when my 9-year-old son walks in the room and he's got a skull on his shirt, right? So if you're secularist and you're proud to be secularist and you're atheist or you're agnostic, then you're failing to recognize you are failing. You're not even trying. At least I'm trying by putting this information out there so that people who want to make money can make money. I'm not interested in the money making. I know you are interested in money making. What I'm interested in is social transformation. So we both can win at this. And now I'm talking to you specifically. Make the shirts as a counter narrative to the death shirts. Make a crap ton of money. pocket it, and I'll be happy because I will have known that this lecture series helped get you super wealthy, and it helped transform the social narrative into a narrative of pride of me, of self over and above all, right? Which is eventually what the Uberman will be. Second bullet point underneath the image, the underprivileged have a feeling of rivalry and resentment. As I said before, right? The underprivileged have this feeling, and it is that feeling that they should draw from and express aesthetically in their work, in art, in their film, in their cinema, in their music, in their performative pieces, right? It's not about being on the corner of the block wearing a V for Vendetta mask and protesting. No, it's about making music. That's why I love, 60s and 70s, sort of rock and roll, right? I listen to soul. I have such an eclectic taste of music, but I love 60s, 70s sort of classic rock, right? Because it's all about protest to the war and self-expression, drugs, and self-reflection. It was a self era. It was a huge self era. It was about me and my recognition and my indulgence, my drug use, my pornographic explorations. It got out of hand, but there is a sense of validity to that. What happened is for the next 30 years after that, we went back into a denialist phase. This is the beginning of a revolution, people. That's why Dr. Campbell is here, because I have the training and the understanding and the social sensibility to recognize that there needs to be a trigger. Times need to change, people. Wake up out of your death sleep, people. It's time to start being prideful, people, and thinking about you, because I'm certainly thinking about me, right? And this lecture series, the realest part of this lecture series is this part. This is really what got me here. I've been waiting for this part of the lecture series for a very long time, and now I'm finally here. The point is, transform the narrative. Infuse society with pride. Infuse society with ego. Recognize that you are fighting a conceptual battle between this suppression ideology, which refutes this body, the self, our embodiment, for something else, and recognize if you want to have this narrative. I just want to see a good fight. I just want to see a good fight. I'm an instigator, right? I'm an instigator. But I think the atheistic community and the agnostic community, they are absolutely wrong in saying that these are the last breathing spastic motions of sort of the theological era. I don't think it's ever been more powerful. And personally speaking, I haven't seen an agnostic and atheistic, despite all of the hoopla, despite all of the popular names, I'm not going to call any scholars out, but despite all of the popular names that are talking about atheism and secularists and human secularism and blah, 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 it's never been weaker. It has never been weaker. 30 years ago, it was more pride-filled and ego-driven than it is now. It is all about self-denial and suppression. So much so that our children are wearing Death Skull shirts. Well, I mean, why is that the case? Right? Why is that the case? There isn't any ego left. Right? This YouTube channel might be the very last remnant of any ego left. Right? Because I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm proud of my work. I damn sure did leave that video of how many hours of lecture I did last year as my default video, and believe it's going to be up there unless I do something amazing, which I doubt I will. None of this matters. Unless it's going to be up there until January 1st, 2012. As a reminder, now I've been working. You know what I'm saying? I've been working. Dr. Campbell, he's been on his grind. He's working. There's no question about that. It's me. Right? And next year, I got a challenge from Pip. Shout out to Pip. When I double it and put up 200 plus hours for next year, then that'll be my default for the rest of that year, right? So, I mean, I take Nietzsche personally, right? I warned you in my video response to my own video for the iPad that philosophy is a very personal thing for me. It's impossible for me to separate my person, and I'm very emotional. I'm a very emotional philosopher. I'm extremely emotional. And I think it's that emotional, sort of intuitive feeling that helps me understand otherwise very profoundly complex text. Second to last bullet point on page 66, religion then seeks to pacify that feeling. Nietzsche says it himself. This is me though. To subdue that will to violence, to act in one's best interest. And then finally, the anger and resentment is replaced with love. Love thy enemy, right? So the idea is we translate the narrative from a narrative of egoism, and Nietzsche said that he killed God, right? And everybody's like, Nietzsche killed God, but reality is God has never been any stronger. If we're gonna, I'm also doing this in concert with my eschatology video series, and I think there is validity to the claim, I really do believe this, that there is validity to the claim. I'm different. You're going to be like, how is he on one hand talking about atheism, but in the other hand, he's thinking there's validity to theological principles. I believe everything. I think there's huge validity to the theological claim that we are in end times, right? The church has never been stronger. If there is a state of affairs in which one would logically be able to make the argument that the church is its strongest, and a signal could be sent to the powers that be that the church could potentially be raptured, I'm not saying it's here today, but I am saying that, it's pretty strong. People say, oh no, it's stronger in the Dark Ages. Well, no, I refuse to believe that it was stronger in the Dark Ages because so much of it was imposed with force. There is such a resurgence globally, there is such a resurgence globally of suppression of desire, of suppression of will, of conformity to the law, of conservative, not in the political sense, ideological framework. And I don't think that's a bad thing or good thing. You know me. It is what it is, right? I don't put value judgments to this. I'm far too much of a knowledge junkie to really have a value judgments per se. It's just a fact. And the sociological fact of the denial is the manifestation of death worship within our culture. I do not see a corresponding antithetical marketing ploy, which is one reason in a lecture privately to my students, I told them, I might end up becoming a marketer. I might end up, after all this is done, quitting academia and joining some really enormous marketing firm. And if it's death culture that they want to push, then, I'll help them push the death culture. Because I really get this. Like the semiotic stuff, ideological conformity stuff, systems control stuff, pattern recognition, I get it. So if my attempts here now earnestly plead that there needs to be a social counter-narrative to this, which embraces ego, self, I, we the best, on many different levels. If that narrative isn't there, and by the end of 2012, 2013, I still don't see it, well, this is waste of time. This is a waste of my time. All of this effort is a waste of my time because there isn't a corresponding social recognition that there needs to be a change, right? That we were closer to that state in the 60s, 30 years ago than we are, 30, 40 years ago than we are today, right? If it continues down this way, then all of my effort will have been in vain and I'll drop out and I'll leave the masses to fend for themselves, right? Because the whole idea is that this is my performative, demonstrative attempt to show you all who actually do have the power to influence and conform and change and blah, 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 that real systemic change is needed. Otherwise, you think you are strengthening the system. The system has never been weaker. It's never been weaker. This is the weakest it's been. It's been so weak, it's unfortunately called me out of hiding. I'm not even supposed to be here. I am 100% invisibility. That's what I do. You shouldn't even know who I am. You shouldn't even know I exist. Unfortunately, it's brought me out of hibernation in order to make this is the final gasp. This is the final attempt for those who are in control to recognize that you really sucking at what you're doing right now. So if there's going to be a battle, it's lopsided. And as Nietzsche says, he wants his opponent to be as strong as it can be. And it is as strong as it can be. Believe it. It's as strong as it's ever been. I can't say the same for the other party to the conflict, right? It's looking pretty weak. So it's an interesting discourse. All right, enough of that.